Hello viewers, tutorial 3 question 1, and we have the formula for a physical pendulum, which is T equals 2 pi square root of I over mgr for I. We want to make I the subject of this equation. We want to rearrange it into I equals something. Okay, so we'll do this one by the onion rule. So start by circling the letter that we want to find, and then circle successive layers working outwards until you've got that whole right hand side circled. So I is in this fraction, I over mgr, which is inside a square root, which is inside 2 pi times the square root. Okay, so therefore we want to unpeel the layers outside to inside. So the outsidemost layer is that 2 pi times the square root. We want to undo a 2 times, which means we want to divide by 2 pi to get t over 2 pi equals the square root of I over mgr. The next layer was the square root. I want to get rid of that square root, which means squaring both sides. So t over 2 pi squared equals I over mgr. And to get I on its own, all we need to do from here is to multiply through by mgr. mgr is dividing on the right, so it's going to multiply on the left. So mgr times t over 2 pi squared equals I. Now when we make something the subject of an equation, really we should be writing it on the left hand side. So we should be writing I equals mgr times t over 2 pi square of. Okay, so now let's do the same formula, but let's solve it for r. So I'm trying to get at what's underneath the square root. So the first couple of steps are going to be the same as what we just did with solving for I. So we want to get rid of that 2 pi from that right hand side. So therefore t over 2 pi equals the square root of I over mgr. Now we can, just like we did 1 minute ago, we can square both sides to get rid of that square root. So t over 2 pi, that's squared, equals I over mgr. What's going to be a bit different this time around is r is on the bottom. I want it to be on the top, which means that we're going to flip both sides. And that square on the left hand side is unaffected by that. So we're just going to flip both sides, even though that left hand side is under a square. So that's going to become 2 pi over t, and this side is going to be mgr divided by I. So let's move the I to the other side of the equation. So we've got I multiplied by 2 pi over t squared equals mgr, and then we can divide by mg. We could either divide the whole thing through by mg, or we could divide just the I by mg. Doesn't really matter, because it is all a division by mg either way. So therefore we've got I over mg times 2 pi over t, and then squared equals r. So therefore r equals I over mg times 2 pi over t squared. Now why didn't it matter whether we put that mg on the bottom of the whole thing or whether we just put it underneath the I? So let's look at a example in the numbers. So let's say we want to work out 3 times 4 over 2, let's say. So 3 times 4 is 12 over 2, gives us 6. Or we could have done 3 over 2, which is 1.5 times 4, that is still 6. Or we could have done 3 times 4 over 2, which is 3 times 2, still 6. So it's only division and multiplication here, which means that it makes no difference whether you divide the whole product through by what you're dividing it by or only one of the numbers. For the same reason, dividing just the I by mg, because that I is multiplying the 2 pi over t squared, is the same thing as dividing the whole of I times 2 pi over t squared all by mg. So it doesn't really matter whether you put the mg where we did or whether we say this is I over I times 2 pi over t squared, all of that over mg. Both of those amount to the same thing. Okay, thanks for watching. Over and out.